Mr. Chairman, your meeting is
All right.
ready.
Okay, let's we'll start the meeting here. And I've got I have the agenda up here. Where did my agenda go? Did we do roll call?
Not yet.
Who's
Not
present?
yet.
Can you do that? Can we start with that, please?
Roll call. Joy. Here.
Rod.
Chris here. Jody.
And Jeremy.
And the mayor.
And
You don't count. And of course, Tom.
All right. Great. And then approval of AI summary of minutes. Need a motion to approve.
I didn't get those out in a timely fashion, so our secretary did not have a chance to review those. So
I would like to move that we postpone the approval of minutes for the next meeting so everybody gets a chance to look them over.
I would second that.
I will do better.
That's okay.
Just discussion and just a little discussion. I think the AI meeting minutes are convenient. I think there's just a little bit of a struggle with how accurate they are sometimes, and so I do feel it's important that they get reviewed for accuracy prior to being approved.
They're a little bit repetitive, in my opinion.
And we've done the next step often. Those are most inaccurate.
Maybe AI is listening and do better this time.
Yes, maybe it will do a better job. Any other discussion?
Oh.
All right. Moved and seconded to postpone meeting minutes approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
All those opposed? All right. Update on resort tax expenditures and revenue. So I will share my screen here. I apologize. Let me know if this becomes a little challenging or you have any pieces that are. All right. I received the official documents from Lonnie and I have clarified them in this document. And I'll go through a couple of things for everybody. Please ask questions. But I'll start, and just let me know if the zooming in is helpful. But I'll start with our income. And what you will see is that essentially for this 25-26 year, we are just a little bit above last year. So we saw the summer months were up, but then the winter months were down. When we looked last meeting at the actual collections, we saw a reduction in lodging collections over the winter months, which is not surprising. But we did see bar and restaurant sales were strong through that time period. In terms of expenditures, we're tracking our budget fairly well and online with what is typical. Just a reminder that the budget year is not over, so this will still be finalized. Usually, sometimes probably maybe by our July meeting, but definitely by our August meeting before actually this full year is fully finalized, just to get all the bills in and paid, and for Lonnie to get everything updated. Sometimes just takes a little while to make sure that's all accurate and working properly. So I just want to point out where we are spending our money overall, and it tracks right along with where basically what the community survey was and what we were looking at. The majority of it is going 45.2% basically streets and snow plowing. And I think remember that we have a quarter of our entire resort tax is for stormwater. And stormwater is streets, right? So, that's a big piece of getting our streets improved. And I think Public Works is really doing a lot of good progress with this. And anybody who would like to see the work, you can just wander around town and you can see that we are making and continuing to make some significant improvements, both in water and sewer and in streets this summer. And while it's fun to listen to people complain about all the construction, I think overall it's super nice to see all the construction that's happening and all the great work that they're doing. Any questions, comments from the group?
I had one question, Tom.
Sure.
What is the minus 7,000 in grants?
I do not know the answer to that question, and I meant to ask Lonnie that, and I forgot.
Okay.
I think it might be, for the tree grant, we paid for stuff and we haven't got reimbursed yet, and it's about $7,000. So I'm guessing that might be it.
So that may change by the end of the fiscal year?
As soon as I file a report with them, then they should reimburse us.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be. It's actually the opposite. It looks like maybe we got reimbursed for something that wasn't expended in this year. Is maybe what I was wondering, if maybe the reimbursement came a year after it was expended, that's actually what the negative would show. So I'm not positive, but we can ask Lonnie that. And I know. Any other questions or comments there? Overall, it's good to see it on par. And, just from a business perspective at the Business Alliance meeting, folks were seeing, a pretty strong June. So starting to see things pick up again. Hotel reservations are looking good for the summer. Airbnb reservations are looking good for the summer. So everybody seemed pretty positive for what the future of the summer looked like, despite seeing some reductions, through the winter with the lack of snow. The loss of the Renaissance Festival has had a little bit of effect, but most businesses say they still saw a really, really strong weekend in June, in that June weekend where the Renaissance Festival would have been. And then, I think most importantly, folks are seeing business in June being very, very strong, and some weekends on par or exceeding some of the weekends in July. So as a general rule, the business community has been very happy with this June so far. This is just another graph of same information as the last graph, just presented slightly differently than the pie chart. So it just gives a little bit of picture there where we are. All right. Any other questions on expenditures before I move on?
Nope.
Oh, all right. So budget requests. I believe, I've been trying to update this while I'm here. So, and I think I got everything captured from the last meeting. And so kind of like to go through with the board and just, talk about the items in here. And if anybody's got anything, we feel like we've missed or additions they would like to see us talk about or add, just let me know and I'll just go through it. Does that sound like a good approach to this?
I think so. Sure.
Okay. I just want to start off with, how this is calculated and where our availability of funds comes. And I just want to talk about the magical $600,000 that we talked about that we don't expect necessarily to come in, and we also are not budgeting to specifically spend. So even if this money were to come in, there is no specific expenditures associated with it. And I think that's just important. But so, we base our budget on the previous year's collections plus interest. And then we add in pool fees, and then any cash that carries over from the previous year. So the cash that holds over from the previous year also helps to, any expenditures we don't have will come into that. So for example, in this last year, we carried over the vacuum truck, and that carried over as cash from the previous year, and then we spent it in this year. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And then we have $600 in contingent collections. Again, this is in case this money comes in, we budget for it. So we're budgeting just that we would collect exactly what we collected last year. But if we were to have a good year or see some increases, we want those collections to be kind of in our budget. But I'm just going to run to the bottom for a second. We don't actually budget to expend all those collections. They sit at the bottom of our budget. So when we balance the income and expenses, those $600, and I know I said this, but I just want to make sure it's clear to everybody, is that this $600,000 is not budgeted to be spent in this budget. Make sense?
Yeah.
And so I've included in this category here both percent of collections and percent of budget. And the reason for that is because most importantly, the tax relief is done as a percentage of what we collect. And so it's 5% of collections that need to go to tax relief. So that's where that comes. The admin and PERS, which is just kind of some miscellaneous expenses, but the majority of that is $16,000 that goes to pay for our Airbnb tracking software. And that software, as the city has reported, has been very efficient and effective at helping them to make sure that the vacation rentals, I should say vacation rental tracking software, the vacation rentals are being captured and reporting. And once we started doing that, we saw a significant increase in the amount of collections. Jody, do you have any comment on that?
No, except for the fact that when we started capturing everyone and bringing them all online with their business registrations, and a lot of them had to pay up to 3 years back resort tax, it was a significant increase, and it paid for the software basically for probably 5 years of the software registration, so the subscription. So it makes it fair for everyone. We don't have people under the radar. Public health and safety, it's a public health and safety issue with everyone had to get their fire inspections, had to get their health inspections, so it's a good thing. It's really helped the city a lot to keep track of all that.
And then water and sewer, this amount has been the amount that we have been doing for a very, very long time. When we did the renewal, we committed that we weren't going to be increasing water and sewer, but that at least at that time we had selected to leave water and sewer in there. And I know, that has been a little bit of a subject of whether, we should continue that or not because it is an enterprise fund. But currently, I think that has helped with a lot of the projects. Mike, do you have any comment on that?
I'm going to argue to leave it in there. A lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And it's lots of money, so it helps.
And then streets operation and maintenance and parks operation and maintenance, those numbers, we pay a half-time person for both streets and parks. So it's the same person half the year in streets, half of the year in parks, or half their work in parks and half of their works in streets, as well as some operational and maintenance pieces in streets. And that, along with the pool operations and maintenance, are all a little bit subject to change as Lonnie does the budgets. There may be increases in health insurance and some of those things that necessitate that those numbers may need to go up or down a little bit to make that budget. So the city will generally adjust this a little bit more as we go towards final budget. And then law enforcement vehicles, we have since the renewal committed to doing one vehicle a year. We typically have done $50,000 a year in that. I upped this to $60,000 just because I understand the cost of vehicles, and what we were budgeting 4 or 5 years ago for vehicles isn't adequate anymore. So just to make sure we're kind of earmarking the correct amount. And when they purchase a vehicle, it is more than the cost of the vehicle. They have to outfit and adjust that vehicle to make it work for law enforcement. So it ends up being a little bit more expensive than what they actually pay for the vehicle. And they're not planning to buy vehicles. They bought the vehicles this year. So this is the earmark. So next year, so that money will be held over, and then the next year they will buy 2. So they typically buy 2 every other year. Fire protection, Jody, I'll let you explain this one.
Okay.
This is not. This is actually not coming from me. Believe it or not, this is a city request.
Yes. Currently, the city is looking to amend our fire protection contract with Red Lodge Rural Fire Department. Currently, we pay 28 mills out of our general fund, and that has been unsustainable because as the value of a mill goes up, the less mills that we can assess for the taxes. So the more of our budget is going towards fire protection out of the general fund. So the mayor is working diligently on the contract to amend it so that we will pay a certain amount out of general fund. And then currently we are looking to use 10% of our resort tax funds for the fire, to the fire department for capital expenditures. So it would lower the amount that we have coming out of the general fund. It would take us off of the mills payments. Jeremy, feel free to chime in here, which is a really bad thing. So it isn't finalized yet, but we are hopeful we can get this amendment finished before budget is voted on. So that's what the city's ask is out of resort tax, is 10% of the 3%.
Well, and kind of the reasoning around the urgency of doing it this year is the homestead bill that went through. That's probably going to change our total taxable value within the city fairly significantly. And so that 28 mills is going to change the piece of the pie, basically, that, that fire gets to, because it's defined by mills instead of by dollars. So this new contract will redefine it by dollars and kind of use a little bit of resort tax to make up differences.
Yeah. And we will say 5 or I guess 6 years ago when we were looking to renew the resort tax, just about every city or resort tax area uses some resort tax money for fire, and some pay 100% of the fire department out of the resort tax. So it is allowed. It's nothing, ours just stipulates it has to be capital, not wages and things like that.
So this last year it was, 28 mills out of 90 some, and we're anticipating it could possibly be 80 some mills. So 28 out of 80 as a percentage of the general fund would be then earmarked for fire, and that's just more than we can.
It's unsustainable.
It's unsustainable, yeah.
Yes.
So.
Do you know exactly, not exactly, but roughly how much that 28 mills equates to, or last year? I think it was like 280 when I left city council, but I can't remember.
302.
Yeah, like 300 and change, something.
So
like that.
we're the resort tax is funding roughly half
Mm-hmm.
of that. Okay. You may have said
Not
that, sorry.
Not quite. I think currently they're looking at 240,000 out of the general fund and 10% out of.
Okay, so it's gonna be closer to 400.
It will be, yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Is council looking at this 10% being an ongoing thing every year? Because if for some reason we had a down year from a resort tax standpoint, fire and police and those types of things are things that the city should be covering, what is their plan to cover it if the funds weren't there?
Above the line.
Sorry. Okay.
Well,
It's committed.
One part of the conversation is that 10% has to be used for capital improvement
Okay.
stuff. So basically, it would just be less that would go into that capital
Okay.
pool for a new fire truck or whatever the thing. Okay.
But
Yeah, talking more detail
That's-
about
It,
spending that money, but yeah.
there would definitely be, other things that would be cut before that. We'll just state that. Because it would be a contract
Well,
that we
we-
signed with Russellville Fire Department. So it
But the
was,
variation in collection, we don't have control over.
yeah, we don't have control over that. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I think the way it looks right now is it would be 10% based on the previous year's collections. And so, if collections are down, the amount would just be down. And so that would be the advantage to it being at 10% of collections is that it goes up or down with the resort tax. And so the fire department, like any other community budget, would have to live within its means based on what the available funds are. So it wouldn't actually ever get outsized in the resort tax because it would drop with the collection drop.
I thought it was gonna be some 10%. Yeah.
Sorry if I misunderstood
No,
your
that's,
question.
no, that's okay.
Okay.
And I think a note is, even though obviously there can be large swings, but while we've seen some changes in resort tax up or down, the general trend with the resort tax has been continuing to be positive. So, and I did have that graph I showed last time, maybe it was a couple times ago, that showed the resort tax over the life of it, I believe. And I might be able to grab that again.
Okay. Tom,
So
Mike
sure.
has a question.
Sure.
The capital improvements be city-owned, or would they be the fire department?
That
That's
is a
where-
question I can't answer.
Everybody?
Oh, that discussion is still underway. That's why we don't have a signed contract yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
I think maybe just for the resort tax committee, because I do think this is important. The question is, sorry, I just changed that thing. I didn't mean to. The question is whether or not in the ordinance that the city is required to own the capital improvements. So what it says what the vote said and what the ordinance said is that the resort tax can be used for capital improvements to emergency services. Personally, I read that to mean that the capital improvements have to benefit the city. They have to be for emergency services. It doesn't necessarily have to be owned by the city. And I think that goes to, anything in the budget. I don't believe that it says it has to be owned by the city. It just has to benefit the city, and it has to be for, it has to meet the terms of what the items are. And that's pretty typical in the other resort tax communities. A lot of them purchase things and use them for things that are outside of their municipalities or the resort tax. For example, for Big Sky, for example, is a resort tax district. And so they don't actually own anything for the most part. They purchase things for other organizations. City of West Yellowstone does the same thing. It pays for fire protection out of resort tax, and it's provided by a fire district. So, any comments on that? All right, so just to go over these items that we've gone through so far, these are kind of our reoccurring items. And so, these are, 80% of collections, 79% of collections. Now, generally, the way the system works is we end up with more money that gives us more for other capital projects. But as this is said in this budget, we have basically, these would all be expected to be yearly reoccurring, and they are 80% of this is, and just to be clear, for anybody in the audience that may be listening, this is the 3%. We also have 1%, which is another is 25%. So it would adjust this when you actually look at percents of collections. So 25% of the total always goes to the stormwater project, which is stormwater, streets, and sidewalks. And that money is collected until the project is completed. I'm gonna pause here for a second. If does the board have any other questions on this?
No.
Not so far.
All right. Okay. So then we will move on. Maybe actually, if it's all right, would like if there's any.
Do you recall off the top of your head what the percentage of collections committed was last year?
I can look
And if you don't,
quickly. No, I can look quickly. It was 75% last year.
thank you, sir.
All right. I'll go down through these and I'll give everybody a chance to comment as we go down line for line. The beginning ones are generally either consistent or holdover. Parks project for $85,000. This was prior was 80. We upped it to 100 last year. In talking with Public Works and Mike, that he suggested that 85 would be appropriate for this parks project, and the mayor requested that this not be a yearly reoccurring, that this be something that we evaluate on a yearly basis. And Mike felt that $85,000 was adequate for that.
And that's gonna include that O'Neill Trail in it.
Okay.
We're gonna loop that into that, that's part of that.
In addition to the Pride Park improvements?
Pride Park is separate.
It's got its own line.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's got its own
Sorry.
Yeah, it's got its own line, and that's been held for a couple of years at this point. So, ice rink improvements. Again, this has been discussed a lot and is a holdover from last year. So,
Has that money been collected? Has that money been collected and it's just being held?
no, it's just a holdover in our budget. So it has not, or in the city's budget, the resort tax budget, it has not been where they are in the ice rink. We are in the ice rink project. Is that currently they're doing an architectural report comparing the two sites and getting general cost, and that'll come into play when we get down to what was programmed for this year. But that, so none of that has been spent yet. I guess does that answer your question?
Well, my question is, there's $400,000 being held in reserve that's already been collected.
That's correct.
Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep. That is correct. Yes. Yep. Yes, that is correct.
I get confused. I get confused in this part of the budget because we've got money that's in reserve and we have money that's projected to be collected, and it's all getting dumped into one bucket, and it's very confusing to know what's projected income and what is being held in reserve. I'd encourage to have those two things separated so that it's easier to see when you're considering a budget what your actual balance is.
Okay. I could probably work with you to maybe help to make sure that it is clear. The challenge, Rod, a little bit is that, some of the money that also gets held over is, or just comes over is other cash and other pieces. So, but I think we can work maybe at a way to make that more clear for you. So I can work with you to try to make that clear.
I think the important part is when the general public looks at this, that they can easily understand what money is where, how it's earmarked. I understand it can be, that 400,000 as an example could be spent elsewhere depending on what happens in the future.
It would have to be voted on by council because it's already been approved by council. Yeah.
It was already approved, but it can be moved. It's just when we're at this stage during the budget, it's confusing to know how much we got to play with versus how much is already collected in reserve.
Yeah, and I think that's why I say, and that's why I put held over on these. And sometimes it's difficult. And and maybe Mike can help us with this. For example, the Pride Park improvements. I don't know. Have you actually contracted for that yet, Mike?
Not yet, no.
Yeah. So I'll step.
This will be the first year it's held over.
Yeah, and I'll step back to the jet truck. When we held that over, we had actually already contracted for it. So the city had ordered it, but just not received it. So sometimes there's two different pieces of held over money. Stuff that has actually been contracted and is committed, and then items that have been the city has budgeted and intend to commit to, but have not actually committed those funds. Does that make sense?
And if I may add just a little to that, Rod. So yeah, I agree with it. It'd be nice to be able to break out that basically it's in cash reserves but already allocated.
Right.
Is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But speaking on that from a budget standpoint is I do not want to create an environment where individual departments feel like it's a use it or lose it type of mentality. And for that reason, once we allocate, and if the world catches on fire, there's adjustments that can be made, but avoiding that mentality, I think, is generally better for the citizens as
right.
well.
And I'm not saying it should be spent. I'm just saying they should be separated, because when we get to this part and we're considering next year, we should have a dollar amount at the top that says this is what you have to spend, and then you can budget the items that are not reoccurring or because that's above this line. So it's what the money we are projecting to actually have to spend on projects, because when requests come, we need to be able to see what we really are playing with.
Rod, I think I understand exactly what you're saying. And it'll just take a little tweaking, but I don't think it's difficult to do that in the spreadsheet. I think we can make that clear.
I think it's almost moved that down to a footnote below this stuff, so that everything in this section is proposed for the 21% that's not already pre-allocated above the line stuff. Here's how we're doing with this. And then as a footnote, this is stuff that has been allocated in previous years, but is sitting in cash reserve.
Right.
Yeah.
To break it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a couple different ways. I'll play with it, and then maybe, Rod, I'll try to shoot it to you before our next meeting. I mean, it will be, my guess is we will have one more meeting before this actually gets approved by council, but that, it'll already be in the council process by the time we have our next meeting. So.
Right.
But we can play with it, and it's a spreadsheet. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. You just have to be careful it actually is accurate, because sometimes I've done things that have messed things up too. So
I'm new to the process, so I don't have the experience of how to read these numbers, and that's the general public. Is we need to make it as clear as possible so that we know what money's being held and what money's available for projects.
Yes, and Rod, just to be essentially truthfully clear, this originally just started out as my notes, and then it became kind of more one of our documents, and so it could be formatted better to be more designed for the public. It was originally just really this was just mostly for me originally, and so now it's and because I think it's easier to read than the city stuff, which I think everybody agrees with that. So
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Wanna read that?
yeah, so we'll work to clarify it a little more. So
Okay.
cost share on the sidewalk. Mike let me know that we have about $20,000 that wasn't spent last year, and then asking, or this current budget year, and then asking for 50 again. So that would be 70 total. And I think this is a new program, so it's just starting out. So we don't really have a lot of feedback on how well it's working, but the hope is that will continue there. Mike, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think it's gonna pick up speed. I mean, people, the word's getting out. I've been handing out more applications, and I think it's gonna be, I think at the end of this year, you're gonna be able to notice it around town.
Okay.
Sidewalks. I mean, the Roosevelt one was one of them, so.
Yeah.
It's a good program, and it doubles our money. We put $50,000 into it, and there's $100,000 of sidewalks done.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. And just the full disclosure that I have a few properties with sidewalks that need to be repaired. So if anybody conflict on that piece, but I have not applied for anything. Pride Park improvements. This is this was held over. This will be held over as they continue to move forward. But again, we discussed that previously, and that's a holdover. The Brewery Hill set aside, that was originally for a grant, but we did not receive the grant, but we want to keep the money in case there's opportunity in the future. I think everybody believes that getting some kind of walking trail, sidewalk path along Brewery Hill so people aren't walking in the street is really, really important. It's actually very highly traveled and in my view, very unfortunate that they didn't put a sidewalk in when they did that. Mike, do you have any comments on that?
No, other than, like, once we get through this construction season, one thing I would like to kind of look into with that project is if we could break it into phases and say the city did maybe the top part on our own, and then the next time the grant comes around, we've got a little more buy-in and we're maybe a little more competitive, and it might help us get the grant. It's just something to think about. I'm probably not gonna look into it till November. So, but that's, and having a little pot of money there in budgeted, if something were to come up or we're able to pursue something like that would be handy. So I think it's worth holding over.
All right. So, Rod, just for clarity, that is everything that is a holdover in terms of stuff that was approved previously. Anything moving forward is a new project.
Right. What is our balance that we have projected to collect?
Well, so right now, this, if we were to leave everything in here the way it is, we would end up with a balance at year end at $347,000 based on these assumptions.
So that's 340,000, not including any holdover. That's what is available.
That includes all the holdover. So
okay.
Yeah, I know it is a little confusing, but essentially,
So I guess the question is, what we're going to look at now is request for resort tax money.
That's correct.
And we have to decide the priority of those things, or at least whether we approve them being considered.
When do we recommend them or not? Yes, that's correct.
but what is the total amount of those items that we can, so not including what's already in reserve and already
The to-
designated?
Yep, I can tell you here. Stand by. The total amount is 870,000 is what the total amount of these items are.
When you say these items,
374.
From the community entrance
259.
boulevard down to,
okay, so not including any of the holdovers.
so, yeah, I just thought about that.
Okay.
Basically,
Okay.
we put a line here.
So the items we're gonna consider next there's $870,000 to allocate, potentially.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That is accurate.
And what is the total of,
And what is the delta between the above the line stuff and last year's collection for a starting number is the question. Right, Ron?
well, it's, what is the balance of the requested item, the requested line items, what is the balance of those from the?
This is, as far as I know, and I'll triple check my spreadsheet, but the 870, this is balanced. So we can afford to spend this. You could move things. You actually could go up by another $50,000. So you technically could go to 920.
Okay, so right now, everything that appears on the spreadsheet, it's projected to collect that money and it could be spent.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Any additional requests would then require us to consider
Cutting
what's
one of these
available.
items. Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay. And you mentioned 920,000, a potential high.
That's
It's all
correct.
potential.
Yep. That is correct.
So we have how much, if we took the 920, which is just speculation, what's the difference there? I don't have a calculator on me.
50,000.
It's
50,000.
47. It's $50,000. Yep.
Oh. Okay. I have a picture in my head now of what we potentially can do without reworking the numbers on some other requests.
Yep. Yep. Anybody else have any other questions? All right. So we'll go through these kind of one at a time, and we'll just talk about them and talk about where we are. So the first one is Community Entrance Boulevard. This is one that the Resort Tax Committee has talked about for a while, and the community has talked about a lot. And I've talked with Mike about this a bit. The struggle is right now is that when the state did the improvements coming into town, they put in those boulevards with gravel and some small planting areas. They are almost always overridden with weeds. They look ragged. The gravel they put in there is hard to contain and hard to maintain in the boulevard. They are different than what exists in the rest of the city, which is primarily grass boulevards. And there have been multiple solutions suggested, from putting in, stamped concrete to just making it full concrete to replacing it with grass. But in any case, trying to fix the planters, fix the sprinkler systems. So this is really just a starting point that we don't have any bids, we don't have any real piece, but knowing that this is probably a little low end to try to get something started, but that this is an important project.
It's probably one that we should kind of coordinate with the Urban Renewal Agency too on, since that's in their area.
Yes, yeah,
And
that could be, yeah.
Potentially something that could be funded through TIF.
Mike, what is your idea on how to make it,
I think initially, without any budget numbers, just kind of, we threw that together. What I would try to do initially is get the sprinkler system functional, because right now it's really not. Based on when I've had guys look at it, it may require almost a complete redo.
do those get blown out in the fall, or is it just,
Yeah, it's
okay?
going on and everything, but it's, from what I've been told, going through the oral history, it's been problematic since day one. So it needs reworked. To what extent, I don't know at this point. The other part that I'd like to do, I get a lot of phone calls about that. Why isn't the city dealing with the weeds and stuff? And I simply don't have staff to put down there and do that.
Right.
I'd like to use part of that 75 to contract services, to have somebody come in and maintain it from, I think the most southern part of the sprinkler system is down there by the beauty, or northern part is by the beauty shop, and then it runs up almost to the library, and just have contract somebody for 3 months that's their baby. Get it looking good and try and get the sprinklers going good. And then maybe that's a long-term fix. I think some areas we might evolve into what Tom suggested, like stamp concrete, and just take it out of the maintenance game. But that will evolve. But starting with getting the sprinklers fixed, getting the maintenance contract.
I wonder if the garden club would be interested in expanding their domain.
That's quite an expansion.
Yeah.
It's a lot of weeds.
That's a lot of weeds.
What is our latest feedback and input from the state? And we got talked into ripping out some of their deadly corners.
I don't think, whenever that comes up, they refer me to the maintenance contract, which says it's our baby.
Okay. It's not big enough that it becomes their baby.
Yeah, and we had some of our fire crews work on that stuff, that pieces out in front of the fire station, and I was honestly amazed at how much effort they had to put in, and then I actually didn't think they got a lot done. And so it definitely it is not well designed, and it is not user friendly. Even getting the weeds out of it is very difficult to do.
I personally would like to see that more maintenance free, moving that direction,
Long-term goal,
because it's just going to eat up money year after year.
Yeah.
but I think,
I like the idea of stamped concrete.
developing a plan to get there. In the meantime, I think we try and get it at least not looking like.
Yeah.
And with water being, a resource that is going to be harder and more expensive to get.
Yeah.
I mean, the sprinklers might just be
Oh, I'm
throwing money away.
The one time what it would cost, I think, to do stamp concrete the whole way. So it's on my computer, but it's a lot. I mean, we're talking like $500,000, I think. There's a lot of concrete in there.
Wow. Okay. Not this year.
All right. Any other comments on that? All right. The tennis courts, We have $200,000 in there. We had a request to up that to $300,000. So just would like to have a little bit of a conversation on how the board feels about moving that from 200 to 300. That we have to, it will come back into another question down in land acquisition, whether that's appropriate or not, because that's where the $100,000 would likely come from, but could come from other places too. But comments from the board on that 200 versus 300.
My only other comment is I have gotten an ask from, they were going to apply for the Safe Streets grant for the action plan for that. And the request was, they didn't apply for it this year, but it would open us up for, they want to apply next year, and it would open us up for federal funding for streets and sidewalks. And we need some type of grant match available for that application. And, whatever we can afford to put in here, but it'd probably be $50,000 or $60,000. So just.
Would that need to be in this budget year or next budget year?
It would be nice to have it in this budget year, but it would just put off, if we don't, it would just put off that grant application another year for the action plan. So
Who is they that you're?
it was actually Nick Gaddy and Mary Vett that were doing the work on behalf of the city to fill out that grant application. And it was supposed to be so-called an easy federal grant application, and it was 36 pages long. And they had 2 weeks to complete it, and so it just they didn't have time to do it. So. Tom, Barb has a comment, if you're okay with that.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Barb.
Yeah, so Barb Beck for the tennis board. So
If you want to come up,
I have to come up?
you don't have to, but if you want to, you can,
Pick up better for
everybody-
online and recording if you
Yeah.
All right, okay. So Tom, were you able to forward this request out to the board?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, great, all right.
Yes.
So I won't go back over that, but first of all, we're incredibly grateful for the city land, which we're hopeful that you will approve us to get, you council people and mayor. And also that the 200 is still in the budget. And so we have the audacity to say, all right, if there's any extra out there, we'll ask, because I think because of the coal slack underneath, our engineering estimates have continued to come back higher each time. And so we're looking at about $1 million project now. And when we started, it was like 700,000. So we've been continuing to raise the money, and we're really hopeful, and it looks like Land and Water Conservation Fund grant we got for 150,000 is going to add 100,000. So that puts us within about 100 of having enough money to do the whole project. So it's a one-time ask. It's leveraging the resort tax dollars 3 or 4 to 1. So we're excited about that the other money we've raised. And also, we feel like it's consistent with the results you got on your survey to support some resort tax money going for recreation development. So that's it. And if you say no, we're still incredibly grateful because without the city's involvement, we'd be 5 or 10 years behind where we are now. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you. Thanks for being quick. Does anybody else have any comments there? We'll come back to that actually as a dollar change as we get down here a little bit, if that's okay with everybody.
Can I ask a question to Barb? Barb, is the school providing any funding what's the agreement with the school and the tennis team?
We don't have the agreement in place yet because it's not timely until we're like a go project. Join in if you want. But so the school will be providing insurance and maintenance, at least initially, and then at some point, whether that comes to the city or not is to be determined. But
primarily maintenance is what we're looking at them to do in the office.
They're not actually contributing money to build.
they're not.
Okay.
They did agree to a modification of the lease, which because part of that is city-owned land that they have leased and they have returned that, which helps both of the projects, the disc golf and the tennis that are up there. So there's school involvement, but we are keeping it as a city asset for ease of bookkeeping.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that what you were looking for?
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the group? All right. Park master plan with coal miners parking. I'll let the mayor speak to that just quickly, or Mike.
The fun part of this job turns out to be park and recreation. So I'd like to have documentation that gives the community a chance to have input and then gives us a guiding document to work from. And those cost money.
And is our master plan, our current master plan is what, 10 years old or more?
Yeah.
Can't remember.
And this is more of a, well, it's out, I guess it could be used citywide, but right now it's been identified that Coal Miners Park is an area that we really need to drive in and focus on, just because there's so many competing user groups down there.
Okay.
All right. Next is land acquisition. The mayor had requested this originally with the concept that we might need it for a matching for land around the Eagles Nest Motel. So that was I basically used that to help balance the fund. But Mayor, do you have any comments on the necessity of that in priority?
I think it's wise to keep it there. There will be on the agenda this next time a letter of commitment for council that I actually just sent out. We are about 2 weeks from being able to submit for that grant. One of the things that they request is that we have the ability to do that. We've also got a letter of commitment from the landowner saying that they'll accept 75% if that's all we're able to get. So it may be that this is something that we are able to reallocate in the future, but I think it behooves us to keep it there so that we don't lose out on the other money that we might not have available.
Great, thank you. The next item is the police station preliminary architectural report. This would be to kind of get costs and build a master plan for improvements for a law enforcement center. We did get that presentation from the police chief. Any questions or comments on that one?
This is the second year for this request, right? The first year it was denied.
Yeah.
That is correct. Yep. It was a late request in the first year, though. Right. It was actually not requested for us. It was requested to the city council, and it wasn't in ours originally. Was actually how it worked. But then this year they requested it through us.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of confusion over that request.
Yeah.
Yes, there was. Yeah, that was part of it. It was put in outside of our process, and then it was taken out by the council. Street completion fund. This fund, in talking with Mike, he requested if we could up this to $200,000, and we were able to make that. I was able to make that work in the budget if that is approval. If the committee agrees that the idea with this is that with all these projects that we have going on in the city, that the project might pay to repave the strip of pavement that the water line that they need under a water line, but it doesn't pay to repave the whole street. But it's much less expensive to do the whole street at that time when they've got it ripped up than it is to come back and do it later. So this would just give Mike some ability to improve, basically make some of the projects that are happening more complete, even though they might be outside of the grant or the project. Mike, do you have comments?
Sure. So a good example on the current project is Park Avenue. We've got the FEMA paved stuff on the north end. It's a pretty nice road. We're coming down on the west side of the road. So the project the grant funding and the SRF forgiveness is only gonna pay for strip asphalt like this wide, and the rest of the street is garbage. So we're paying for that asphalt. We still have a really bad street. At some point, we're gonna come back and tear that new asphalt out and do the whole street. We're gonna have a contractor here who's already mowed in, they're already paving. And if I had the ability to say, hey, I wanna add the rest of the street to it, we get it at a cheaper price, and then we're done. I mean,
Makes sense.
and we have a lot of these streets coming up where, I use Platt as a great example of why this is a good idea. You go down Platt after the stormwater project, and it's, you know, it's just, well, it's because we just patch, go 10 feet patch. With money like this, I'd say, no, we're taking it all out, we're just gonna pave it, and then it's a nice road. We get, I think, a good bang for our buck. We won't have to come back to these streets for a long time. Will they have curb and gutter? No, but, will they be way better than they are now? Yeah. So, and pretty much every street we're working on, for the most part, would help with more pavement after this project. So,
Mayor input, yes, please.
Well, it's in line with what we saw in the survey too. Supports that.
yeah, it's totally in line with.
Yeah. Personally, I think it's a good item as well.
People,
We've talked a lot about this small. Any other comments? Sorry.
Nope, that's good.
The small sander to go on a truck that they've already got. We've talked a bit about that.
The plow on it too. Plow
Yeah.
and sander.
Plow and sander, yeah. And then this rock gravel screen. So like some of this stuff that they're taking out on projects, they can actually screen it and get workable soil from it instead of just having to truck it away. Any questions there? Sorry, not being in the room, I don't want to make sure I'm not going too quickly, but I want to make sure to give people time to talk. So just holler if I missed something. And then this Parks pickup truck, we had that in for 60. And in talking with Mike, I actually said, let's put it in for 75 to make sure we get the right truck for him. And he will work to get the best price he can. And if we don't need it, we won't spend it. And then traffic. Go ahead. Questions?
Are you going to get a truck with a utility box on the back for all of his tools, or?
Probably not. I mean, he pulled his trailer with all his tools on it. It must be a half-ton pickup truck. What he's got right now, I think, is a 1998. I'm buying $400 worth of parts for it tomorrow to keep it running. We got our money worth out of it. It used to be in the building inspector's truck, and we got our money's worth out of that truck.
Okay.
And then traffic reader boards. This would be for reader boards so that we can help inform people about events, road projects, road closures, any kind of community stuff that we need to do, or emergency information. The county does have 2 of these, but that we use occasionally, and obviously you see the state ones all over the place. But these would be ours that Public Works could use, and it would be very helpful from an emergency services perspective, I think, as well. But from a Public Works perspective, would be really helpful.
The county ones are very restricted to what we can use them for. They basically got them with a grant that has limits on what it is, so
we get turned down a lot.
We're at their mercy of asking for them and whether it works. So this would give us ones that we have control over.
Tom, where'd you get that number?
Mike?
Oh, Mike, where'd you get that number for the reading board? Or is it more than one?
It's 2 of them.
Okay.
They're a little bit, I might have a quote in here. No, I don't. Can't remember remember the.
Got a quote for 2.
It's a quote for 2.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just looking, just quick looked that up and I was like, that seems like a lot for, but if it's
Yeah,
two,
these
that
are-
makes,
These are the same ones the county has, they're same width, but they're a little taller. The counties, I think, are, like, these are a foot taller, roughly. Same thing, programmable, so we use them for parade, the car show, all kinds of stuff.
are they solar powered?
No, yeah, they are solar powered,
Yeah, I
they have
think they're-
batteries and solar panels.
Yeah.
Battery and solar power, yeah.
That's why they're expensive.
Yeah. Everything's expensive.
I know.
All right. Before we come back to some of the items and we look to finalize it, and then we'll do public comment before we finalize any of this. But is there anything additional that the board would like to add? That hopefully it's something we've heard in the past that we've forgotten about, or something that you feel is that we may have missed that we should have gotten included.
I think we should consider what Jody mentioned about what Nick had requested because
A grant match.
yeah, the grant match, just because again, roads, sidewalks, all of that stuff are things that top of list and we hear over and over and over again. So if we can accommodate it, then I think we should consider it.
And it doesn't have to be necessarily for that, just to have a line item for a grant match in there with, you know.
Could that be part of the land acquisition?
Well,
That's a grant match.
I'm gonna actually, I will say I want to bring up a couple of things before I explain this. Is there anything else that someone would like to, anyone would like to add? So I apologize, on my screen I'm working on a static document, not one that I can update because I'm on my iPad and I can't manage that. But I do have a computer next to me that I can run the numbers in. There's a couple of things. Our numbers are not finalized yet, and the city council will have to finalize this. So it is okay if we can provide the council with some guidance that then Jody can take back to the council as our advisor. Obviously, the mayor will make adjustments to this when he makes his budget. We are just an advisory board. I think that's an important thing to understand. But as we get finalized year-end numbers, some of this may change. So we may have some flexibility in order to do it. Our goal is to have a cash reserve at the end of the year of $300,000. So currently, if I put in that $65,000, we are very close to budget. And so I believe that even with that, we could make that. Just hearing what everybody said, the only, unless someone would like to request another change, what my suggestion would be is that we could adjust the tennis courts up a bit based on available funds. If there is some added available funds, that could be upped a little bit. Does anybody have any question or comment on that? Or is there any other item that they would like to suggest we change the amounts on? Everybody's okay with that? Okay, all right. Well, and then I'm going to come back and ask for motions to, we'll go through motions to approve this, but first we'll go to public comment for anybody in the public that wants to make a comment. For public comment, because we are limited on time here, we'll go with standard 3-minute comment rules. And we would ask that if you've made a comment, especially recently, that you not make the same comment again if we've already heard the comment. But if I'll let maybe somebody in the room kind of shepherd that a little bit if there's people that want to make any more comments.
I can run the timer.
Okay.
Do we have anyone in the room?
Yes.
Hope.
Hope Smith, Northward. I have a couple of comments. One, it's very difficult for citizens to participate in this because we don't have any of this. And I complain, I fuss about that. So in the future, if we could have that in our little hands, either, I don't know, even if we could just look at it on our phones, it would help. So that's that. Secondly, I think it's a great idea to set aside some of that money to match the Safe Street Acts or grant. Listening to Public Health and Safety Committee, I know they really would like to see that. So I think that's great. I can't see that everything's on here, but is there a $300,000 request for the ice skating rink? No. Okay, so that's not on there.
Hope I can make just a comment there. That was removed and pushed down to future requests, so it is not on this year's request.
Okay, great. Lastly, I appreciate how much work both the swimming pool people and the tennis court people did put into their projects to get it going. And going forward, if that is a request, I'd like to see the ice skating group step up and do fundraising just like the other groups have done. I know that they take up and put down the rink, but I'd like to see them really hit fundraising hard. Thank you.
I agree.
Thanks, Hope.
Can I address that? Just because I'm kind of ice rink adjacent, or is this appropriate time to say anything?
Yeah. Let's wait for a public comment and then you can make a comment, Chris.
Okay, sure.
Do we have something? Yep.
Mary Decker, and we live on White. So just kind of like what Hope was saying, like we can't see any of this. One of the other things I would like to see is you guys like working to have a project in, kind of on the boards and then funded instead of funded as they come up. You know what I mean? Like, so like you look at Laramie, they did like a penny tax, but they had all of their projects out there. And then they came in and they said, these are the projects we want. This is what they cost. And then they funded after that. And I think it would be smart to fund after we already have costs determined.
Anyone else in the room?
You do have one online.
Go for it.
Go ahead, Seth.
Hey, good afternoon. Hope actually asked my question if ICE was on the budget. I was having a hard time seeing the budget on my screen as well. And, I do agree that these projects, I know that they're wish list items and that they have to be funded, but it would be good to see these projects further down the road, just to set that expectation to the community that these are not foregone conclusions and that these projects have been handled outside of public input and without city organization, I guess, and community organization. So that's all I got to say.
Thanks, Seth.
Mr. In-Room Chair, Vice Chair, you do have a Zoom user online. It's just identified as Zoom user who has a mic that's open. I don't know if that's an indication they like to speak, but it's a possibility.
Yeah. Give it a shot.
Open mic Zoom user? I'm guessing that's not intentional.
Okay.
I have one more.
Yeah, Eileen.
Great. Rebecca Hardy of North Hauser. I would like some more information on the $375,000 that has been dropped from the request for this year, because that's the first I've heard of that. And what is the future of the $400,000 on the list for the ice rink? Also, just to reiterate, it's really, it's not understandable why these documents can't be shared, at least online, or handed out with the agenda meeting. So none of us have any clue what any of this says up here. So that would be really terrific if we could make that improvement. Thank you.
I think that's everybody.
Yeah, great. Mr. Mayor, have these not been posted to the
This doc hasn't, so there are older versions of it, and this one will be posted after this, and presumably also included in the packet, because you guys are still planning on doing your presentation at the next council meeting, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So this, for the sake of this meeting, is still a working document, but it will be available in the packet that comes out on Thursday.
Yeah. And it's not drastically different than the one that was done last time either.
Yeah, and those are like I said, as we get an updated version, those get posted online. So.
All right, Chris, did you want to make a comment?
Oh, I just wanted to, I have talked to people that are involved in the ice rink, and as I used to be, and they have every intention of fundraising once they have a plan. So just to put that out there, it's not like they're going to ask the city for everything. So just FYI. And to address your, we generally don't have people coming to participate, so this is really great to have everybody here. And yeah, I mean, maybe we could have handouts next time. So
Maybe you can
thank you all for coming.
talk to some of your ice rink contacts, and if they could be as interactive as the tennis courts have been, that would kind of be
I'm
awesome.
sure they will be when they know what's possible. And
And just so you know, that's why the 375,000 is not in the budget, is because we do not have any figures for that. So there's just not an ask this year for that, because there's no hard numbers, there's no budget, there's no, it's not there. So, and it's very unlikely that council would approve an additional 375,000 for a project that has no budget yet. So that's why it's
truly is in an early phase, but
early phase.
I would appreciate seeing some additional visioning, especially during summer use.
And I think it largely depends on the location. That's
Give us pictures for both.
it all costs money and time. So it's just
So the 400,000 stays on.
Yeah,
it's already been approved and allocated. So yeah,
last year.
Maybe we can put in a request to the resort tax to get us a giant screen here.
Okay.
there are other activities.
Okay, so you're not using that one?
Why not put it here?
It's also on, but this one, but it's the master right now.
Okay.
All right, and I did hear that background. I'm not sure if we can do that with resort tax money, but I would agree with you that maybe how the council chamber sits makes it a little challenging to be able to. As somebody who has presented fairly often to council, it is a little bit challenging to make that presentation based on how that room works. So. In this modern world, used to be you didn't get a giant screen to show everything and do everything online. All right, I want to come back. Does anybody on the board have any other questions?
No.
So I would entertain a motion to recommend this budget to the council. With the addition of the $65,000 and the addition to the tennis courts based on available funding. Someone wants to make that or change it.
Okay. Move to, whatever he said, I will say that.
So I've got
I agree.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. So it's moved and seconded to approve the budget that we have been working on, to recommend it to council with the addition of the $65,000 plus additional funding for the tennis courts if that becomes available. Any more discussion?
Just to be extra specific, the 65 is for the Safe Streets match.
That Safe Streets match, that's correct. Yes.
Great.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. We are right at the end of our time here, and so maybe even a little bit over. resort tax presentation to the council. I believe the mayor has asked that we present maybe at the next council meeting. Is there anybody, generally what we will do is present this budget. We'll present the survey results. Is anybody interested in helping me with that?
Well, Jeremy, we're on council, so
Yeah,
it
so
has to
so
go.
it have to be.
We'll be,
Is it next Tuesday?
yes,
It's the 23rd.
at 6 to 8 is usually our council meeting, and it will.
Tom, I could help with that, because then if people question, how did you guys come up with all those questions? And then I could say, hello, we discussed them.
Yeah.
I'm happy to help with that, unless Chris or you guys want to.
I'm happy to help too. I mean, what?
All right. So how about both of you? We can just,
Yeah.
yeah. And it would be great, I mean, it is nice if we can be there just in case the council has questions about, how we, and just, nice to show everybody too. So, all right. That sounds great.
I'll be there. And can you just let me know? I mean, you're obviously going to present.
Yes, I can do the press. Yes, I can.
Whatever you need help with, I'm happy to help.
Same.
All right.
But I'll
Great.
be there.
Super. I'm not sure exact. I'm hopeful that maybe I will be headed home tomorrow, but I'm not exactly sure. So we'll see how things with my family go. So.
Say hi to your pop.
Yep, we'll do that. Does anybody have any other business they would like to bring up? All right. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate all your help and input.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
All right.
Bye.